So in this video, we're going to get all of our files organized and together, hopefully to make this a little easier when we start to build our train scene. Um, because I'm not sure how each of you have been saving or where they're at. So each of you might be in a slightly different situation with how your files are organized. So I thought just to make it easier as you watch the videos, if we all had the same formatting system, things might flow a little bit better. So I want you to pick a spot where you want to put all of your files. For example, I'm going to use documents, and I had mentioned, I believe, during the beginning of class, having a folder for all your stuff. So I have one called Blender Class, and I've cleaned this out just so it looks a little easier on the screen and you're not confused by other files. So we're just going to right click, go New, Folder, and we're going to call this Train Project. Now, yours doesn't have to be in the documents or in a folder called Blender Class, but pick somewhere where you have a folder called Train Project, and we're going to save everything into that folder. Okay, now that we have that named, let's open Blender, and I want you to find and open your file that has your smoke emitting system that we created. Now, we're going to make this file the actually main file that we're going to add everything to. The reason I found out after some trial and error, after we did this, that a particle system cannot be imported as an asset. So instead of you all trying to reset all of this up, I decided that we would start with this file as our main file. So let's go ahead, now that you've found this, go to File, Save As. I'm going to go to my Documents and Blender Class, click on the Train Project. And while we're here, I'm going to go ahead and click the Add Bookmark, and that's going to bookmark that for us so we don't have to keep clicking through other folders to get to it. So that will put it right here. And we're going to rename this. I'm putting 00 so it stays at the top. I don't particularly care how you organize it, but I do it this way so it keeps files in the order that I need them instead of in order alphabetically, which sometimes isn't the way I need them sorted. So this is going to be our main train project. So I've got that typed in. I'll hit Save As, and now this will be saved in that folder as our main file for this project. Okay, next I want you to find and open your file that has your rocks that we created. Now, I don't have that because I used a video from a few years back and I don't have that file anymore. So let's pretend like this is your rock scene, and I'm pretty sure I had you make several rocks. So you have your rocks, and we want these to be assets in our project. So if you want to, one, make sure they're named in a way that you can tell them apart, rock 1, rock 2, whatever. Once they're named, we can right click on each. Actually, I changed that. We can actually select them all at once, then right click, mark as asset, and you'll see the library books stacked next to it. And that means all of these are now an asset that we can pull in. Once you've done that, we'll go to File, Save As, make sure we're in our Train Project folder. And I'm just going to call this 01 Rocks. Next, go through and find your file for your trees. And I'm going to pause while I do this so you don't have to watch me go through a bunch of folders. Okay, so you should now have the file that has your trees. You should have a pine tree and a variety of other types of trees. Make sure that they are named in a way that makes it easy for you to find them. And make sure they have the little books next to it to mark them as an asset. Any of them that do not, you can select it, right click, and choose Mark as Asset. So once all of these have been made into assets and you have them named in a way that's easy for you to remember and know what they are, go to File, Save As. We're going to go to our train project folder, and I'm just going to call this 02, and I'll just put trees, and then we'll save that file. Next, let's get our geometry node assets pulled up. Okay, so you should have your file where we were doing the trees scattered along our plane. And I'm just going to make sure that this is working correctly. Okay, so what we're going to need from this are our 4 geometry node setups. So if you're not in this window, you can click on geometry nodes and then come down here and click this drop down menu, and you should see the 4 different ones we created. You have the collection scatter using density, collection scatter using weight paint. Hang on just a second. Sorry, I had to pause for a second. So we have the collection scatter using weight paint, the object scatter using density, and the object scatter using weight paint. We'll probably only use the weight paint options, but just in case you decide that you might want to use the other 2, we're going to mark all of those as assets. So to do that, you'll select the one that you want, right click and mark as asset, which I've already done. And you should see this little stack of books once again. And you can tell here that each of these have the stack of books, so that will show up. Now, when we drag this in, it's probably going to pull the trees in with it. So we may not have to go back and drag them from our other file, but I wanted to go ahead and just mark the previous file with as an asset too, just in case something went wrong, and you can pull those in. So once again, make sure all of those are marked. Everything seems to be working okay. And then we're going to go to File, Save As, going to my train projects. Oh, there we go. And I'm going to call this one 03, scatter geometry nodes. And we'll hit save on that one. Next, let's find our train model. Okay, I have found my train model, and I'm going to go ahead and double check that the materials are attached. Now, you'll notice that I am having an issue with the pictures not pulling up on this. And what happened, I've moved files around a little bit. And to make sure that doesn't happen to you, I'm going to show you what to do in a second. But, excuse me, as long as your pictures are showing up okay, you don't have anything to worry about. Just ignore the fact that mine aren't appearing right now. So just make sure you have your train models. Make sure your wheels are there. If you did the extra activity to put stickers on things, make sure you have everything. Make sure each thing is named in a way that you know what it is and it's easy for you to find. Make sure that each one of them is marked as an asset. If not, you can select them, right click and mark as asset. And now we want to do one extra step. We're going to click on File, and we're going to External Data. And external data would be things like the textures that we have, anything that's a file outside of Blender itself. And we're going to click Automatically Pack Resources. And you'll notice I had a lot of errors because I had moved this before I packed it, and those files aren't in the right place. You shouldn't see any errors when you do this. And what that will do, Blender is now going to take those pictures that were in other files, and it's going to pack them inside of Blender, this Blender file. So when you save it and move it, those files are contained inside of Blender's, that file. It will make the file bigger since those things are connected to it, but you can move it around without worrying about losing connections to pictures that you're using. Once you have done that, we're going to go to File and Save As. Go to our train project folder. We're going to name this one 04, and we'll just put train model, and that will give us access to those parts. And once again, I do have these errors because I moved this and the pictures aren't where they're supposed to be. You shouldn't see that. Next, let's find our train controller objects and open that. Okay, I have that file open, and I forget if I had you delete the circle or not. If I didn't have you delete the circle, you can go ahead and delete that, because otherwise when you pull these in, it pulls that circle in too, and you'd have to delete it then, and we're going to use something else as the path it's going to follow. So when you delete the circle, they'll all kind of come here to the middle. So we're just going to make sure that I have the train engine empty, the train one car, and where you have these on top of each other, it may not show it. So if I hit G to grab, you can see that it is there, and I'll hit escape so it goes back. Then I have train two, the car, second train car, grab, it's there. The third one, it's there. And then the fourth one, it's there. So all of those are there. The temporary wheel, we're going to leave this so that we can bring it in to bring in the geometry nodes, or we can mark it. You can kind of do either one, but it might be easier if you have an object that you can see. So it's named temporary wheel. So I have this collection marked as an asset, so that way they all come in together. So to mark a collection, you just right click on this part and you go to mark as asset, and it will mark this and anything in that collection as an asset. I will go ahead and right click and mark this temporary wheel as an asset, and I am going to select it and come down to the geometry node setup, and I've marked that as an asset also. So it's kind of doing the same thing twice, but I guess it depends on which way makes more sense to you. So once all of these are marked as an asset, we'll go to File, Save As, and go to our train project folder. We're going to name this 05, and we'll just put train controller setup and save that. And then last, we'll open our train track piece. I forgot to pause. Oh, well, you guys can watch me click through files for a second. Train track piece, here we go. And now we have our train track piece. And in the video, when we made the train track piece, I had to record it without audio. So in my example, I've deleted the path that the piece was going around because I don't need that to come in. But I do need to make sure that my train track piece does have the array and the curve modifiers. You may still have the mirror modifier, and it's okay to leave that on. This is an earlier model I did before the one in the video. So you'll have your train track piece, and you will have the mirror modifier, the array modifier, and the curve modifier, which we can then pick the curve object once we bring that in. So go ahead and name it in a track piece, whatever you want to call it, right click and mark as asset. I will note we did not give this a material, but we can do that once we get it into the other main project. It won't be that big a deal. So once we have this done, we'll go to File, Save As, go to our train project, and this will be file number 6, track piece. Okay. So we should all now, here we go, have the same files structured in the same way. So when we're doing this in Blender, it should be pretty easy for everyone to follow along. Let's do one last thing before we end this video. Let's go into Blender. Let's go into Edit and Preferences. And we're going to go ahead and set that folder up as its own asset library. So that way you don't have to look through all the other files that we've added to the assets, just the ones for this project. So let's go to File Paths, very bottom. And I'm going to hit the plus sign. I'm going to go to my train project folder, which is the one that's currently selected, and add that as an asset library. And that should show up here. And just to make sure that worked, let's just pull up the timeline here at the bottom, click this icon on the far left, switch this to Asset Library, and we're going to go to All Libraries, change that to Train Project, and then we should have the different things that we've created for this project and nothing else. So it looks like I have the materials that was on the trees. I have my trees. I have the train track piece. I have the simple rocks that I used to fill in for rocks. We have our object scatter and our collection scatters, the train controller, and I do have a couple others where I've saved these files a few times and had multiple things in the files. So you may not have all of this, but just look at it, make sure you see all the pieces that you need. And that will end it for this video. And then the next lesson, we'll actually get into setting up the scene.